the June 23rd, 2022 meeting of the Sustainability Commission, our first meeting in person for a long, long time. So those of you in person, great to see you in person. Those of you online, hopefully we'll see you in person at some point, but thanks so much for being here. Item 2 is our roll call. So commissioners, do you have any commissioners online? We do. Okay. Online commissioners, feel free to unmute. And when I call your name, please say aye. Chair McCain, or present, whatever. Chair McCain, present. Vice Chair White, present. Commissioner Steiger.
Present.
Commissioner Baer. Mr. Daly.
Present.
Commissioner Kunkel. And Commissioner McCormick.
Present.
All right.
Chair McCain, I do see it looks like Paul Bear is online. And is
Paul, can you hear us? Commissioner Baer, Vision Commissioner Baer.
I'm present.
All right, welcome. So yes, this is Commissioner Baer's first meeting. Welcome, Commissioner Baer. We look forward to working with you. I'm so glad that you've joined our team. Commissioner White, are you comfortable reading?
Yeah.
Land acknowledgement and vision mission?
Oh, I only have the vision mission. But, oh, okay.
Can't do that online.
Vision. The vision statement of the Flagstaff Sustainability Commission is that the city of Flagstaff is a culture and community that thrives in response to the climate crisis. The Sustainability Commission's mission statement is to advise sustainability section staff on matters related to climate and sustainability, support community projects through neighborhood sustainability grants, and provide feedback to the city council on sustainability issues. And the land acknowledgement is that the Flagstaff City Council humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of this area's indigenous nations and original stewards. These lands, still inhabited by native descendants, border mountains sacred to indigenous peoples. We honor them, celebrate their legacies, traditions, and their continued contributions. We celebrate their past, present, and future generations who will forever know this place is home.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair White. And for those of you that aren't here, I brought a little welcome back. We survived COVID. I'm sure you can see this really well. Sticker for each of you. So don't forget, whoever you are, to pick one of these up. Well, we have to see you in person. I guess that's the condition. So, all right, thank you, Commissioner White. This is now time number 4, public comment. At this time, any member of the public may address the commission on any subject within their jurisdiction that is not scheduled before the commission on that day. Due to open meeting laws, the commission cannot discuss or act on items presented during this portion of the agenda. To address the commission on an item that is on the agenda, please use the Teams chat function. Simply type in public comment to indicate to the chair that you would like to comment. The chair will then recognize you when it is time for public comment, and staff will unmute your microphone if needed. Do we have any public comment?
I don't see anything in the chat.
Okay, apparently not. So we will move to item 5, which is the approval of our minutes. Commissioners, hopefully you have a chance to check them out, and the floor is open if you have any comments or motion.
I'll motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner McCormick to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, Vice Chair White seconds. Discussion. And Marissa, you'll just tell me if someone.
I'm watching. I'll let you know.
Okay. All right, not hearing any discussion. I'd like to. Oh. Is that something?
That was a member of the public, it looks like.
Okay. All right, so I'd like to bring this motion to a vote. If you're online, commissioners, please unmute yourselves. If you're in person, get that little frog out of your throat if it's there. And we have a motion to approve the minutes as written for May 22nd, 2022. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion approved. Now moving to our business items, number 6A, Water Conservation Plan Update. Tamara Lawless, thanks for being with us. Fire away.
Hi, thanks for having me. Can you guys hear me okay? Volume okay? Good. Glad to hear that. I think a lot of you are actually new since last time I spoke with the Sustainability Commission. So I'll just introduce myself. My name's Tamara Lawless. I'm the program manager for water conservation, and I've been at the city of Flagstaff for 9 years. I did my first 3.5 in sustainability, doing the kind of climate stuff, and now I'm in water conservation. So I'm going to give you guys an update on our strategic plan, and I'm going to go ahead and share my PowerPoint here. Let me pull it up, and I'll go ahead and I'll turn my camera off too, just to try to preserve bandwidth. And I'll go slideshow from the beginning. Here we go. So just for those of you that are a little bit fresh, our strategic plan was originally passed in December of 2020 by City Council. So it's been about a year and a half. It is a 20-year plan. So we're planning on executing these actions for the next 20 years through 2040. We had an extensive public outreach process during the plan. So we had an advisory committee that was like kind of technical experts in the community, and then also a stakeholder group that was, broader citizens that were involved. And then we did surveys, and we also did tabling, and we had some open houses. So we tried to really get a lot of opinions over the course of the process on what kinds of things should we be pursuing for water conservation in the next 20 years in Flagstaff. And it assessed both the things that we were currently doing and things that we could pursue in the future. And, just as like a highlight of the end result of the process, we did get a couple of awards. So that year, we also got an award from WaterSense, which is an EPA program that is really important. They assess fixtures for efficiency as well as efficacy. So they make sure that if it's a toilet, that it flushes well. If it's a shower head, it actually rinses your hair and it's efficient. So we got an excellence award from them that year, and we were also on the leaderboard for the Alliance for Water Efficiency. We were the first Arizona utility to be on that leaderboard, and it's exciting because they essentially, have a checklist of things that you need to do as a water utility to show that you're dedicated to conservation, and we were able to meet that at a gold level standard. So the reason we pursued a strategic plan is, one, we wanted to quantify water savings. So up until this point, when we had picked things to pursue in water conservation in Flagstaff, we were essentially basing it off of best practice, things that were pursued in other parts of our state or in the West or around the country, and not necessarily on the things that were going to save the most water for the long term for our town. And so we wanted to really know, like, what are the numbers moving forward? So we wanted to select those future water conserving activities, both to make sure that we are covering all of our communities, so making sure that we are serving commercial customers and residential customers, and also to make sure that we were going to hit the numbers that we wanted to hit, which I'll talk about in the next slide in terms of this community's water demand. And just to let you know the level of technical detail we went into, we hired a consultant that is kind of cream of the crop in water conservation nationwide. And they put together a really sophisticated model where we can put a lot of inputs and outputs and figure out pretty accurately how much water we're going to save by doing different things. And obviously, we wanted to establish Flagstaff as a leader in water conservation. That's been an important part of our goals as well, that we let people in the state and in the West and around the country know that Flagstaff takes water conservation seriously. So I mentioned our demand curve. I know that you probably can't read the text, but in terms of the total line, so the smaller graph that you see on the left, that shows the demand essentially before adding in any conservation initiatives. And that demand showed that once we hit a population of approximately 106,000 people in Flagstaff, that we would need to seek out an additional water supply. So, one option for that supply might be developing Red Gap Ranch. And then if you look at the curve on the right-hand side, so the green one that's still standing is the one kind of before the water conservation, and the blue one below is what we are projecting for this 20-year plan. So based on this plan, we can push that need to develop an additional water supply until the population reaches 140,000 people. And we also buy ourselves quite a bit of time. So you can see that in the first graph, it's around like a little after like 2033 when we would need to do that. And in the second one, it's more like 2048. So it buys us time to invest in other technologies and figure out, are there other ways that we can meet that additional water supply that are less expensive or less environmentally impactful? So through the plan, there are some things that essentially did not change, some things that we just were already doing and we continue to do. So examples of that would be like all the work we do on public outreach and social media. We do an annual Water Awareness Month campaign where we're out in the community a lot talking about our jobs and why it's important. Every year we do a 4th grade water festival where like 1,000 4th grade students from the Flagstaff area come to Fox Glen Park and work with Project WED and learn about watersheds and why water is an important resource in this community. We do things called consultations. So we do those for both residential and commercial customers where we actually go to the site in person, we measure fixtures, we look for leaks, we help them understand where their meter is and how to read it, and then we provide a report that goes over what we found and recommendations that we have for the future. And that sometimes we even replace small fixtures as we go. So for example, aerators, which are those little circles in the picture, sometimes we'll just replace those as we're going through in a consultation. We'll say, oh, this bathroom aerator is using over 2 gallons a minute. You can really get by with just a half gallon, and we'll just swap it out right there. And then another thing that the utility is just doing is investing in meter replacements across our community. So getting meters that are more efficient and hopefully long term. The ones that we have are now smart meter capable. So long term, the hope is that those meters would be able to read in real time and give things like leak alerts much sooner than we do right now, because right now they only get read once a month. So if you've got a leak that happens 5 days after your meter was read, it might be going for 25 days before the leak kind of shows up in the data. We also recently did an audit for non-revenue water. I know that sounds kind of technical, but it's basically every year we have a certain volume of water that we treat, and we can look at the data and say, how much water did we sell compared to how much we treated? And the difference is the non-revenue water. So some of that water might be lost as leaks. Some of it might be issues with fire hydrants. We try to have good communication with, other staff in the city when they're using water in that way, but sometimes some of it gets missed, or there could be incidences of theft, and there could also be incidences where meters are not reading accurately. So we recently hired a consultant to help with this. The charts here, the graphs, so the one on the left shows the total volume of non-revenue water. This was for the year 2020. So they estimated 300 million gallons for the year. And then the other chart shows the costs. So essentially, how much revenue did the city not collect because of these issues? So you can see that the red one, for example, shows how much of the water was metering issues. So it, volumetrically, maybe it's only 50 million gallons. But in terms of our lost revenues, it's the most impactful piece of losing the money. So that helps us, kind of think about how to strategically go after some of these issues in the future. And so the approximate monetary loss was $1.13 million. So there was an issue with our data validity. They only gave us a score of about 55 out of 100 for this first audit. And we can increase that score to like the 70s if we annually test the system entry meters, which are all the meters that are leading from wells and from like the Lake Mary plant into the potable water system. So we also do rebates, which is money invested back to customers after they invest in upgrades. So we made it a little bit stricter for residential customers. Now they have to go to a premium efficiency toilet, which is 1.1 gallons per flush or lower, to get a rebate. Our city code is actually 1.3 or lower if you're replacing a toilet or building a new building. So they have to go a little bit more efficient than the code. We did do some work with commercial customers over the last year and a half, especially hotels. The participation was a little bit lower, I think, than we would have, anticipated, partially because of the pandemic. It just made it harder for those businesses to invest in those types of upgrades. Yeah, sorry, did somebody say something?
You lost your PowerPoint I'm not sure if you meant to stop sharing or not.
Oh, no, I didn't. Yeah, let me try again here. Just did it by itself. Okay, can you see that again now?
Yes.
Okay, thanks for the heads up. Yeah, and we also, during the pandemic, there were some like staffing. The city did ask for us to have a hiring hiatus, so we didn't have as many staff that we wanted for a little while. But now we're pretty much fully staffed, which is good. But one of the programs that we were able to get off the ground over the last year and a half is school retrofits. So we have new money that we're investing in K-12 schools they don't have to have any financial match. So we're pretty much, fully investing in the retrofits that we're doing at schools. So one example is we did some projects at the Flagstaff Junior Academy at their Cedar campus. So we replaced their toilets. They had 1.6 gallon per flush toilets with premium efficiency toilets that use 0.8. So we were saving 50% of the water being used on those. We replaced lots of aerators. So on average, we're getting like a 70% water savings from those. We found like a leaky faucet that we replaced. And so our annual estimated water savings for this specific project was 44,000 gallons every year. And we also were able to do like an educational program for their students on World Water Day, just discussing the projects that we did and how they can save water as kiddos. And then we also did a couple projects at Mountain School and Haven Montessori. We're doing kind of an experiment where we're replacing the valves in these flush valve toilets. So a flush valve toilet is the kind that's not mounted into the floor. You usually see it at more of a commercial building where it's like mounted into the wall and it doesn't have a tank. And they're really expensive to replace. Usually we're talking like $500 to $1,000. And so we had some expert advice. We might be able to put in a more efficient valve in the stem instead and get savings. So we're going to kind of experiment with that and see if that's a solution to get water savings without having to replace the whole fixture. And then we also, had some leaks that we detected and are assisting them in fixing. Lots of aerators, again, good savings on aerators. They're very cheap for us and they have, really good fast return on investment. So it's great for us to get those out in the community. We also, over the last year and a half, have revitalized our rain barrel program. So our rain barrel program was using up a lot of our staff time, because we get the barrels from Joy-Con and they have soy lecithin in them, which is just kind of like a fatty substance that gets put into the ice cream cones. And we were spending a lot of time trying to get those clean through a fermentation process. And, our assessment through our strategic plan model showed that, the return on investment in terms of water for rain barrels is not good. Across the industry, it's kind of a open secret that especially small rainwater catchment systems, like a 55-gallon drum, really doesn't save much water. In fact, sometimes they see trends where people use more water after they get a rain barrel, and the suspected cause of that is that someone gets a rain barrel, they're really excited, and they go, to Werner's and get a new bush, and they're watering the bush with their rainwater, and then they run out and it's not raining yet, and they freak out and they go and use their potable water to keep their bush alive, right? And so it ends up maybe being a negative feedback loop for water savings. So what we've done is we tried to reduce the amount of staff time that we're putting into the barrels. We've been using volunteers at the Cocoa Op, And we're kind of giving instructions on how people can clean out the like little bit of a film of soy lecithin if they want to. And then volunteers are doing we kind of drill a hole at the bottom to put in the little spigot. So we've been reducing our time on that. And then we also have this new partnership with Habitat for Humanity and Eric to get some screen. We put a little piece of screen at the top to keep bugs out, so it's not like a mosquito breeder. So I guess it's material that's being diverted from the landfill for that. And then on the workshop itself, we are emphasizing more on other things that they can do to save water at home, like replacing a toilet, replacing fixtures and other, behavior change and how to actually be a low water gardener so that we can hopefully get some water savings from this program because it's very popular in the community, but we know that sometimes it's not necessarily leading to the savings we want to see. So last year we were able to get out 55 and we've got like 150 new requests for barrels. So we're actually holding a volunteer event this weekend to get some more retrofitted and out in the community. We also have some new money that we have for innovation. So this is a chance for us to really just try to test things and see if they're a good fit for Flagstaff for bigger scale use. One example is we've got 5 households this summer testing out this high efficiency grass seed, this low water turf called Pearls Premium that's supposed to use much less water than traditional turf. It's supposed to be low maintenance. And so we're going to see if that works well on those applications. And if it seems like people are having an easy time growing it and that it is pretty sustainable, then we can try it on some bigger plots of grass, like a park or a small parcel in front of a city building to see if we can show that it is a good investment for this town. We're also going to be purchasing some sub-meter units. So essentially that allows us to track water use at a smaller scale. One example would be like a strip mall. So if there are 5 businesses on a strip mall, often they're all on the same water bill that's getting paid by like a property owner. And that restaurant or that shop doesn't really know how much they're using personally. So a sub-meter can be used to track their usage on like a pipe just for a month and kind of give them more information so they can be more empowered about their usage. Some other things that we're considering for the future, one would be partnering with local plant nurseries to promote native and low water use plants. This was a project that I heard about in Colorado. They had issues with, people would want to be putting in a low water garden and they would have like a plant list of things that they wanted to use, and then they couldn't find them locally anywhere in town that was selling it. And so what, I think it was the city of Boulder, don't quote me on that. I think what they did was they essentially had like a voucher program. So they, told like several local nurseries, if we're going to give out these vouchers that people can come in and get 1 penstemon and you collect the vouchers and we'll pay you for as many as you give out over the next 3 months or whatever. And it gives the nursery an incentive to grow that specific plant that the customers are going to come and get for free. And then the city reimburses. Another one that we were looking at are these toilet tank topper faucets. So essentially, the way these work is every time you flush, before the cold water goes into the tank, it pours through a little faucet at the top, and you can like wash your hands in it, and the soapy water goes into the tank, and then you flush with that water the next time. One potential complication with these types of fixtures is that there are minimum distances from like the toilet to the sink fixture. So we've got like one of our aides is trying to research whether or not that's actually a legal solution to use in Flagstaff. We also have a couple code proposals. So when you propose the change of code, it often takes a long time. So we know that some of these might change or evolve as we go through the process of researching them. But one thing that we are hoping to see is a WaterSense certification required for faucets, shower heads, and toilets. I did mention that we do have a more efficient toilet code in Flagstaff already, but it does not require WaterSense certification. And high efficiency fixtures, it's just better if they can be very well tested. Otherwise, people complain if they get a high efficiency fixture that doesn't work well. They assume it applies to all high efficiency fixtures. And another thing that would be good about having WaterSense written into the code is that the code would essentially move and adjust over time as the certification changes. So if in 5 or 10 years, WaterSense says, okay, from now on, to get a WaterSense certification, you have to be 1.0 gallons per flush or lower, our code would just naturally lower to meet that standard. Sierra Vista, Arizona actually already has a requirement for WaterSense certification, so we can potentially model our code after theirs. I also did a little research earlier today, in Georgia has a WaterSense requirement statewide. I was surprised to see that they are one of the ones that are investing in that. So it's not unprecedented to see that. We also would like to see some changes in the landscape code. So a couple things that we are pursuing would be better passive rainwater capture through contouring on new development. So just trying to do a better job of absorbing that runoff when it comes off of a roof and down a downspout so that it's passively watering landscaping, requiring less installation of permanent landscape, irrigation systems. For years now, we've been saying that the plant list really needs a revision. It's been a long time since it was revisited. But we think it's going to happen soon. We would likely be putting together like a work group or an advisory committee to help kind of review that list and make sure that all the plants, that none of them are invasive, for example, that none of them would be an issue for our local landscape, and that we have plenty of options that would be drought tolerant and native on the list. So next steps, obviously it's a 20-year plan. We're continuing to implement all the new programming that we laid out. One of the ones that we are looking to implement is called outdoor water budgeting. So it's basically just a calculation of how much water a specific piece of turf needs. So usually we're looking at like a big park or a big soccer field and trying to work with the manager to make sure that we're applying enough to keep the grass healthy but not overwater it. I mentioned that we have that money that we're investing in K-12 schools. We also have money set aside to partner with our higher education institutions in Flagstaff. So NAU or CCC, it's just like a 1-to-1 match. So whatever they're investing, we can like meet it up to 50%. And then we're going to be putting together like an annual tracking sheet showing how we're, progressing through the plan with total participation every year. And then also things like the community water use trends, showing that we're hopefully seeing the reductions that we're anticipating because of our plan. So that's my quick and dirty presentation. I will see if I can turn my camera back on and see if anybody has questions or comments. Hi.
Sure, perhaps this is Paul Byer. I'm on remote. If I could ask, it was interesting to hear, glad to see the city's doing this stuff. I'm just wondering though, with that 55-gallon rain barrels, we've known for at least 10 years that it's a worthless endeavor. So why don't we just stop it completely? What is the point of, scaling it back? Why not just tell people, if you want to do something useful, get a 1,500-gallon tank, and maybe we'll give you $100 towards that. And just a thought. Similarly with the that premium turf seed, we shouldn't be encouraging turf of any kind, in my opinion. So just maybe your reactions.
Yeah, thanks for the comments. Yeah, I mean, I think if it was up to me and I was, a water conservation dictator, I would probably say no more rain barrels. We're not doing it anymore, but they are extremely popular in the community. And when we did our community engagement process, I mean, consistently, that was one of the things that people wanted to see us keep. So for us, it was about damage mitigation. Like, how can we invest the least amount of our own personal effort and energy into it? And how can we use it as a gateway to get people involved in all the things that we know have like water savings that are proven, right? So that's been our philosophy so far. And then to your second comment about turf, I mean, I think that's one thing that you hear a lot of pushback on about water conservation, like, oh, you guys are just here to get rid of my grass, right? And so we want to see a reduction in non-functional turf. So we don't want to see turf like on medians or places where people are just walking past and it's decorative. We are okay with turf where kids are playing on it or dogs are playing on it, a sports team where it's being actively used and enjoyed. I think that's okay and an okay community amenity. We just don't want to see it where it's just there for no reason.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I see Nicole has her hand up.
How do we,
Yeah, Nicole has her hand raised.
do we raise our hands and you call us? How does that work? Okay, because Kevin and I think both have our hands raised.
You can go ahead and take who gets to go.
Oh, is Nicole's related to that issue?
Of course it is.
Yeah, fire away.
Tamara, thank you so much. Hello, good afternoon. Nicole Antonopoulos, Sustainability Director. Tamara, is there a tipping point with rainwater collection that the modeling showed was a benefit? Myself, for example, I've got over 3,000 gallons of collection systems that are tied into a drip irrigation for my low water. But yeah, I was just wondering if like taking it beyond, because, you know, to Paul's point and to your point, the community love of rain barrels is there. And so if there's, is there something we can encourage people to aspire towards in terms of a collection amount? Thank you.
Yeah, like thanks for the question. So we do have like it's kind of small. It's a $100 rebate for a 1,000 gallon or larger installation. And the model showed that that is definitely worth our investment. So I think at least 1,000 gallons plus is probably close to that tipping point that return on investment showed for us. I think part of the issue is that those types of systems are more complex. Like a lot of people are not necessarily looking to install pumps and, you know, the infrastructure that is often required for that type of system. So I think to other conversations we've had that it just might require some partnership with like master gardeners and other groups to like get those people that are more interested in that type of complex collection system to actually get them to take the leap and invest in it. Let's hear from one of the commissioners at the table.
Yeah, Tamara, I had first off, congratulations on the award. That's really cool.
Thanks.
And on this issue of water barrels, it seems like there's a really great education opportunity here, given that the dynamics that are operant in making a small water bottle, a small water collection barrel ineffective are the same dynamics that can relate to electric cars, to all sorts of other things that people think are really great but actually aren't. So I'm wondering, and again, I know staff time's a big thing, but have you thought about or would you consider some sort of educational component to all these excited people that really want a rain barrel that don't understand that it actually might be counterproductive? Would that be an option, or would you like support in making an educational component be part of the rain barrel experience?
Well, maybe you could clarify, because we do currently require them to attend a workshop to get one of the barrels. And that's where we're kind of feeding them the information about like, now that you've got a barrel, go ahead and go home and check your toilet and see what era it is. And if it's older than this date, please go ahead and install it. Because you know, from a behavior change perspective, if somebody's got a toilet that is flushing at 3.5 or 5 gallons of flush at their house and they just upgrade it to like a 0.8, the water savings are going to be huge, and they're doing literally nothing behavior wise differently. So that's why we kind of encourage them to try to get some of those low hanging fruit before we maybe would, you know, pursue like a complex outdoor watering system. I see Emily popped on. Maybe you want to weigh in too, Emily.
Yes, thank you, Tamara. So I actually I run the rainwater harvesting workshops. And yes, we do talk about like both indoor and outdoor water conservation. And I think to speak to David's, you know, question, we do a lot of water conservation practices outdoors. Don't plant you know, until the monsoons, and plant, you know, native plants. If you're going to have edible plants, you know, do hydro zones. So basically you're grouping your water needs together. And the overall concept is to reduce your water usage overall. We talk about drip irrigation coming off of your rain barrel instead of, being connected to the municipal water. It's an hour-long program.
Wait to interrupt, we're about out of time on this issue, and I guess my only request is to be explicit about that dynamic, and even name the gentleman's paradox, rebound effect, be explicit about it. That would be my recommendation, and I think Vice Chair White has.
That in the, the reason that we've continued this program, is in the hopes that people will reduce water, and that's our goal. So, yep. Thank you, though.
Thank you, and thanks for this report. It's really good to be caught up on it. I'm curious, is this, how closely is the city keeping track of threats to the viability of Red Gap Branch as a water supply? Is the city taking steps to make sure that it stays viable? And do we have a backup plan if it ceases to be viable?
Yeah, I mean, are you referring to things like mining and activities like in the adjacent properties there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to it as much of an expert. I'm sure you saw that the city had an injunction against the helium company that was trying to mine out there. So I know it's a concern and a priority. Probably would be better to call back a couple other people from the water team to explain kind of what the long-term legal strategy is on checking the water quality up there and, preventing pollution. And I mean, we want to see some other options. We're looking at what would it mean to treat reclaimed water into potable water instead of investing in Red Gap Branch, and is that potentially an option to pursue instead? So I think long term, we're hoping that there are like A, B, C type options for that, future supply. But I think if that's something you guys want to hear more about, I'd be happy to kind of relay that message that you'd like to chat about it.
I would like. I can't speak for the other commissioners. It's something that I would like to hear about.
Yeah, Kevin, please note that at our fair item.
Okay.
At the end of the meeting, and maybe we can remind you if you don't.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Tamara. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks. Nice to see you all.
Now moving to item 6B, which is recommendations for commission action to support the carbon neutrality plan. And this is kind of a two-part thing, and I'm going to give it to Jenna in a moment to overview some of the options and provide some other thoughts. And as I reflected on those options, I had a proposal for a working group that you received in our agenda summaries. So I think we'll start with Jenna and maybe get other feedback from others if there's other ideas, and then we'll move to my proposal. So go ahead, Jenna.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Marissa will pull up. I just kind of summarized those recommendations that you already got a chance to view, I believe, and threw them into some slides. And I was just going to go over them with everyone one more time and give you guys your chance to have the discussion. Thank you, Marissa. You can go to the next slide. So the categories that were provided were advocacy, engagement, program support, advisory, relationship building, and research. So I will go through each of those. And we started with advocacy. And so in this little table here, you'll see on the left, those are the actions. And I kind of broke it down in this one to give some examples of who and then examples at the end. So advocate for climate action with elected officials. City Council, of course, here in Flagstaff, but there are lots of bills that go through our state legislature. The Arizona Corporation Commission has a lot of things as well that can affect climate action here in Flagstaff. And the federal government, especially right now. So this could be anything from thinking about infrastructure for active transportation, looking into walkable cities, micromobility hubs, and then even thinking about ways that we can bring this stuff to Flagstaff as well. And the next action is to really try to build influence and power and trust through relationships with local leaders. And this can be organizations, officials, and this could be hosting meetings with these organizations and discussing climate action with them. And the third one on here is just really thinking about a system for us here in Flagstaff where all city decisions are made thinking about climate action and thinking about equity. And so kind of doing some research, working with elected officials and leadership on this, and then just really proposing a way for them to do this instead of asking it, doing some research and figuring out how this could be done and how other cities are doing this, and to really think about, funding, budget season, but also other projects that the city is doing, making sure they have an equity lens and include climate action. And then engagement, so many fun things here. Make presentations to community groups, and this could be nonprofit organizations, this could be neighborhood groups, the Southside Community Association, conduct outreach in schools, do a presentation on the carbon neutrality plan, or find some fun projects that you could offer teachers to help with students on. A book club, a climate-themed book club, just a regular meetup where the community can come and start getting involved in climate action. Additionally, workshops, and the CMP, as we know, is really big, so you could focus on a specific target area that you guys are interested in. Businesses, this could be conducting, direct outreach to businesses, or a listening tour where you're going around talking to businesses and asking them, what does climate action mean to you? Or, what do you think when you hear this word? So just really listening to our businesses and finding out needs, and then providing them information as well. And then the last one on there is community-wide action challenges. There's different eco challenges online, a carbon diet where you're, challenging Flagstaff to lose this many pounds of CO2, just different ways to raise education and awareness. And here we have program support and advisory. And I know this one probably overlaps with a lot of the work you guys already do, but just really supporting programming that the Sustainability Office is doing with additional education and engagement. So really targeted kind of outreach campaigns where you can help us spread the word on the solar co-op, or we have home weatherization rebates coming up. Lots of different programs or campaigns that we can always use help with. Support the Resilient Neighborhood Network, and this will be working within your neighborhoods or different neighborhoods in Flagstaff to really improve resilience and train community members and really offer the kind of educational piece and the resources needed that community members might need. And then provide input on policies, plans, or upcoming projects that we're working on. And you can really even do a deep dive to make sure, think about things like equity, inclusiveness, and accessibility. Research, funding opportunities. We know there's a lot of federal money out there right now that we don't have someone that's always keeping an eye on all of those things. And then research best practices. You can meet with other sustainability commissions in Arizona or across the state, even offices or nonprofits or organizations to learn about programs or ideas that we might be able to utilize here in Flagstaff. And then relationship building. Think about our media, trying to build relationships with them to encourage climate action or get stories published about local climate impacts here in Flagstaff. Intercommission work, so attending other commission meetings and seeing where we can overlap. And I know some of that's being done, but is there like 20-something commissions? I can't even list them all. So. And then state coalition building, just finding allies in Arizona and seeing how we can come together and work together and kind of really build up allyship across the state to compile opportunities and lessons and barriers. And that is it. Any questions?
Commissioners, I enjoy hearing what we do is only limited by our collective time and energy. So would love to hear if there's things that people have a lot of excitement and fire around that Jen has mentioned or others. So the floor is open.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Commissioner Daly.
Thank you, Chair McCain. So this is a timely presentation because one of the things I wanted to bring to the attention of the commission is that last week there was at council there was a presentation by city staff recommending removal of the protected bike lanes that were installed last summer. So that was, obviously encouraging active transportation is a key component of the carbon neutrality plan. Pardon me. And it, looking at the way that the topic was presented, I guess that the Transportation Commission bought off on the idea of taking Flagstaff in the wrong direction in terms of active transportation, but that really seems like the kind of thing that should also have come before this commission. Given the incontrovertible linkages between active transportation and the carbon neutrality plan. So, I'm not sure what the solution there is, but seems like something that should be remedied going forward. Thank you.
Yes, I'm hearing that for you. Maybe going forward, you're wanting an agreement or trust that transportation issues that maybe overlap between transportation and sustainability, which could be a lot, come to both. Is that what you'd like to see?
Oh, I mean, I just think that something that has a clear linkage to the carbon neutrality plan should come before the Sustainability Commission, before City Council is told that, this is not a big deal. We should just go ahead and tear out the bike lanes.
Yeah, Nicole, I'm wondering if you could speak to that in terms of process and potential changes in process.
Apparently my dogs like to bark to your voice. Yeah, we were not involved in any of that discussion when we are working very hard to try to integrate into that process. And this was identified as a tension point, not only in the climate action and adaptation plan, but also in the carbon neutrality plan. And we have a lot of changes underway, and we are also just about to embark on a very comprehensive code analysis that is looking through the lens of the climate emergency and the carbon neutrality plan, as well as the housing emergency. And so we did get funded along with the housing department, section, to hire consultants to identify where all these barriers are in our code. So we kind of have a two-pronged challenge, and that is the code in and of itself, and then internal processes. And my hope and goal for that initiative with the code analysis is to ensure that there is more comprehensive and cross-pollination, if you will, across the organization and into the community, and specifically for issues like Commissioner Daly is bringing up. Yeah, we've in a nutshell, we've got some internal hurdles as well, big ones.
All right, thanks, Nicole.
Thank you, Nicole.
Yeah.
Great. Any other issues? Vice Chair White, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So a few things. Coalition building stood out to me as something that we could be, it seems like to me like we could be particularly effective in. Research also would be potentially good because it's something that we can individual commission members can do more or less on our own, maybe more effectively than we would be able to do things that require larger groups. One thing one thing that came to mind, I was going to wait till the end to talk about this as maybe a future agenda item, but I don't know what kind of, but it seems to me that reforestation is something that is a big, can have a big impact on climate, especially given the situation, our locale and our situation right now. I don't get the impression that there's a really big campaign to reforest areas around Flagstaff that have been impacted by wildfires. And it seems to me that that's maybe something that the Sustainability Commission could be active in building.
Are you asking me in particular, or was this for the rest of the team?
This is for the whole team.
Yeah.
If you're asking if I'd be willing to spearhead something like that, then probably yes. But it's more just something that as long as we're talking about things that we could do that could effectively help with the climate crisis, that seems like something that we can do that would potentially be pretty near the top of the list. Especially since I get the impression that, at least in my opinion, when we have lots of sort of rhetoric and not that, education is important, but when we have education divorced from actions, it loses its impact very quickly, and it's easy to get very cynical when you have words divorced from actions. So I don't know, my opinion would be that, whenever we can, we should do things that have an actual impact, and connect that with any education work that we're doing. And this seems like something that actually would have an impact, both in terms of the climate crisis and in terms of people, of something that all community members can actually see and touch.
Yeah, and I know that would probably be more, working alongside the Forest Service, thinking about who owns different land. And I know, right now in Flagstaff, it seems there's a lot of efforts to almost do the opposite, and it's kind of to get rid of a little bit of our density when it comes to forested areas. So,
well, this is something that, I know that this is, a lot of the land is Forest Service land, and it's not part of the city, but that, also, it still impacts us as a community, and that also ties back into opportunities for coalition building. It's something we could maybe partner with the Forest Service to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just was not sure if I know who owns all of the land, but yeah, I think that would be a great, research opportunity to figure out kind of those things. I'm not the expert in that area for sure, but yeah, opportunities all over.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair White. Thanks for bringing those up. And in terms of mechanisms for how we can get those things done, I think one obviously is working groups. And if at any point, I think we don't need to decide everything today is the big thing. This is an ongoing dialogue. And if you would like to either bring proposals for a working group or proposals for work that you would like to do individually, and structure something and bring back to the commission, that might attract more people to that specific work. But I think in terms of a mechanism, I think writing something up around the specific they'd like to work on and allowing the commission to give feedback would be a good process. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I'll put some work into that over the next couple of weeks.
Super, that's great. Commissioners, other thoughts on potential actions?
Commissioner Bear, his hand raised.
Go ahead, Commissioner Bear.
Yeah, so I guess the very first action listed there is advisory, provide commission input on City of Flagstaff policies, plans, and projects. I looked at that, I thought, well, isn't that why we exist? I mean, is that not a mechanism already in place? Does the city run any policy plan or project by us if it might have for us to comment on in terms of carbon neutrality? you know, my first meeting here, but I thought this is the core of our mission. This is why we exist. So is there a mechanism that I guess some things will always slip by. They'll have some program and we won't recognize the carbon impact part, but it does seem every one of those should come to us for consideration. So maybe that's a big picture question, but is it?
Yes, I think yes is the answer. We do get all sorts of things to us. And I don't know, Jen, I don't know if there was an extension of beyond what we typically get, or?
Nope, and that's, I think when I read that slide, I said, many of these are things you already do,
Okay.
and that was,
Okay.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, in particular, we gave lots of input for the carbon adaptation and adaptation. Carbon, what's the word?
Adaptation.
Action and adaptation?
Yes.
Action and adaptation plan and the CNP. So certainly the documents that are spawned in sustainability, we get a lot of review of. We also reviewed the multimodal transportation plan, and then today we have the Greater Observatory Mesa Trail plan. So we do get a lot of those, and that's part of what we definitely do.
Cool. All right. Thank you.
I have some.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner
I
McCormick.
think for me on this, like me showing this commission is what I'm able to do. But there's a few things in here. One is I'm really curious what the sticking points are, like it was brought up earlier in the discussion, this issue of maybe communication and sustainability maybe not being considered sometimes when things are brought to council. Or it would just be good to know what some of those sticking points are so that we can have like the biggest bang for the buck, so to speak, if we're gonna put our energy to something. Where those low-hanging fruit from the city's perspective that would be really helpful, considering the expertise that you have here on the commission. Yeah. I have a couple other comments too.
Okay, and on that note, I think, Commissioner Daly's example is one relating to transportation. Another issue relating to transportation that the process did not include the Sustainability Commission as much as we had hoped is the transportation tax that passed a couple years ago. So that's an even bigger example. So just sounds really important. And again, the mechanism, whether that's Nicole bringing something to us, I don't know what that would look like, but.
Or the one that was like advocate to city elected officials, if it's that, and just bringing to their awareness that transportation and sustainability are connected, and we need to make sure they know that consistently a lot over time. Like maybe we can write a postcard or make a phone call occasionally just to remind them, something like that is easy and quick.
Yeah.
And potentially impactful. I was looking through here about a month ago. I was at work and came across a whole pile of resources for city funding for these kinds of things, and I sent sort of an annotated list to Jimmy, and I never got a response. But Nicole, if you didn't receive that, I'd be happy to forward it to you, just in case some of those things aren't on your radar already. And I'm happy to continue doing that. And as far as your idea with re-vegging the forest, I have a lot to say about that, and I'm sure Commissioner Byer does as well. So before you jump in, Vice Chair White, to that idea, I'd be happy to chat with you about what's already being done and what that conversation currently is with the experts who manage the forest and their vegetation.
And process-wise, Marissa, would we need a working group to enable that discussion?
I believe we would need a working group, or that could be done during a commission meeting.
Okay. So I know, Kevin, you mentioned a number of things that you're interested in. So if that is one that you have energy around, definitely putting on that on the agenda is something we can do to facilitate that.
Yeah. I think it could be a quick discussion because in short, I don't think revegetation has a place where we can put our energy.
Okay.
But if you're not an ecologist, you may not necessarily understand all of that, so we would have to chat. And there's things maybe that I don't, other perspectives you have that I'm not aware of, that we can share.
Okay. Great.
That's all I have.
All right. Great. Well, I would like to share what you've already seen in terms of what I have energy around. And you know, as I wrote, I had a good meeting with Jen and Marissa on Monday about supporting the Resilient Neighborhood Network. And you know, fundamentally for me to put time and energy and intention into helping folks that are excited about creating more networks in their own neighborhoods, to give them a place to get support, do research, you know, develop structures that might serve other Flagstaff folks with similar interests. And this is just something I have a personal interest in. I just moved to a new neighborhood, and I love my neighbors. It's really cool. There's like 50 properties in the townhome area, so it's kind of a natural place, and we're just next to the 40. And if the fire takes if a fire burns near University Heights and jumps over the 40, then our places will burn down. So I think there's a real powerful need for folks to get educated and to learn about their neighbors. And I think in doing so, I guess I just have a vision. If there is a connected relationship network in a community, that creates potential for all sorts of things that serve well-being and also resilience. So I'm thrilled to create a working group, which I initially envisioned being perhaps just myself if no one has fire around the issue. But if any commissioners would be up for joining me, I'm thinking it's maybe a 4 to 6 hour commitment per month, in addition to, and that's a lot, maybe 2 to 6 in addition to our meetings, to get this going immediately, and to be working in consultation with the work that Jen is doing, and as I wrote in there, the AmeriCorps Vista, who's coming on soon. So that is my idea, and it's an invitation to other commissioners. So I would love to hear if anyone is interested or has any thoughts on that proposal.
So I read through it, but maybe just clarify for me.
Yeah.
What is what would the goal and mission of this working group be?
I think the goal would be to create stronger communities in a broad sense, and in particular, the basis of relational networks in communities, in the sense that you know your neighbors. I mean, I think examples. One example, like for example, the Firewise program that the fire department has. One of their neighborhood actions is, you know, meet and work with your neighbors. And another piece of the Resilient Neighborhood Networks is I want to say a census of your neighbors, but that's not exactly it. But really what it is like a bank of needs and resources for your neighbors. This is done in a lot of other places. There's work called asset-based community development through Northwestern University, where they have done a lot of work in communities where you just get people's assets and their needs. You know, for example, the elderly guy on the corner who's in a wheelchair, and the 16-year-old who lives down the street who absolutely loves to shovel snow. Resource and need can connect. And for me, the potential, if you continue to honor that network and it's robust, it becomes something that helps when the evacuation order comes. You know that the gentleman on the corner, we need to make sure he gets out. So that's the kind of things that I'm looking at. And you know, if you or anyone else were to join, I really want it to be a collaborative thing to explore how that might look in the group and for the community. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
Commissioner Fire had his hand up, but not any longer.
Okay.
No, well, I had it up because I forgot to put it down. So, but I guess I love the idea, but I've lived in 2 different Flagstaff neighborhoods, and I always feel like I like this idea, but I've never felt that connected to the people, more than 3 or 4 people within 3 blocks, so I just don't know how to, I love the concept. I just don't even know how you do it. During the last election, I actually went door to door in my neighborhood. It has a lot of low income people that probably don't vote much. And I was trying to encourage voting, and most people won't even answer their door, even when they're inside. I mean, I just, I love the concept, but I guess I'm concerned about how to move it forward. So that's just a little ramble. I'm sorry, I can't expect a response. It's just a reaction.
You're gonna get one. You're gonna get one, because I think that
All right,
raises a
good.
very good point. This is absolutely countercultural. This is absolutely working against the neoliberal orthodoxy that separates each of us into our own communities and makes us dependent on corporations and not dependent on neighbors. So it's not going to be easy. However, what has a real life for me around this, Paul, is fire. Because you need to speak to people that have needs. And if there is a need for communities in Flagstaff, it is fire awareness, fire preparedness. I mean, that is huge as we see. So for me, the key is to find a common interest and use that as a means to connect with people. I would venture to guess that more people are concerned about fires than vote, as one example. So for me, I think that's a starting point, but I think the whole point of the working group is to do some research, to talk to people, to try to figure out, this is something that, is going on nationwide, people trying to create communities. So I think part of the work is to answer that question, how do you do it? And for me, again, fire just literally, I mean, excuse the pun, but it's hot, it's really hot, and it can attract people. So for me, that's a direction that I have energy around, and would love to hear what comes up for you hearing that.
I have a comment because when I saw this on the agenda, I thought,
I'm sorry, Commissioner McCarthy, I wanted to get a direct response from Commissioner
sorry.
Bayer, if you could hold on.
So no, that's cool. I'm just trying to think. In my neighborhood, I don't think fire is that obvious unifying concern.
Right.
So I have to think, well, what, so I'm always thinking in terms of me,
Sure, absolutely.
So I actually, even in my yard, I built a trail. I'm on the edge of Sinclair Wash Canyon, 50 feet deep. I built 30 stairs 10 years ago, and I encourage my neighbors to use it, but I don't even know how to do that, So I feel like, I'm trying to engage with people, and but yeah, I'm trying to think then, what would be the thing that would grab most people in my neighborhood? I think that's probably a key.
Absolutely, and I think that is the question that we would try to answer for any given neighborhood. So if you'd be interested in joining me in that conversation, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'd love to talk, because I think it's a great idea.
Awesome, okay, yeah, go ahead, Commissioner McCormick.
I just wonder, because I think fire is really important for a lot of communities, maybe not all, but for those neighborhoods, for the neighborhoods where it is important, I feel like this is something that needs to happen and isn't, where, can the city provide us with a stack of resources, printed materials that can be obtained by certain neighborhood champions, so that we can go door to door and say, hey, do you know what Firewise landscaping is? I know I looked at my house and saw pine needles in the gutter, and that there's one tree that's a little too close. I'd like to chop that down. Could we get together and organize fundraising, grant writing, depending on the neighborhood, work days, in order to improve our fire resilience? And that needs to happen yesterday. And it can be a great way to start, at least in some places.
That is exactly what the fire department's Firewise program is intended to do. And I don't know exactly what resources they have, but I'm guessing they could use our support because there's a national network of Firewise communities, and I think there's 4 or 5 surrounding us, and they're all the Flagstaff Ranch, Pine Canyon. They're all the the places where wealthy folks live. So I think one potential of this is to broaden that and to work with the fire department to see what's going and how we could connect and support them.
Yeah.
Cool. So it sounds like Commissioner Bear, you're interested in a working group, and Commissioner McCormick, do you have interest?
I do. I feel like if we could identify some resources and advertise it, I'm hoping that wouldn't take 4 hours a month for the next X months, because I don't have that capacity.
Okay.
But I would show up and say, let's identify the easy thing and let's do that. And let's
Okay.
just get moving on.
Yeah, I think if we had a first meeting with the 3 of us, we could figure out people's respective time commitments, and that would work.
I'll show up to the first meeting.
Awesome. All right, so we have a proposed working group. I forget what I titled it. Neighborhood Resilient Working Group, composed of myself, and I'm going to chair, Commissioner Bear and Commissioner McCormick. And do we need to make a motion to that effect? I move that we create a Neighborhood Resilience Working Group composed of Commissioners Bear and McCormick. Is there a second? And myself, excuse me. I'll say it. Vice Chair White seconds. Is there any discussion? Well, I'm excited about it. I mean, I think it could be cool, and I think I really resonate with what Vice Chair White said, that this is really about action. It's about education and really ultimately about action, and the action need is somewhat urgent. So I'm excited to move on this.
Yeah, so I guess maybe just two little comments. I guess I have a meeting with Marissa, I think next week, on the my roles and responsibilities and limitations and conflict of interest. But it occurs to me here we're having 3 of us meeting outside of the meeting, and so I guess educate me on that this is okay, for us to be discussing commission business without the full commission. So and then I guess my other observation is let's meet in person, shall we? This meeting, for me, the acoustics of this remote meeting stink. So
On item 1, we are legally allowed to have working groups with no more than 3 commissioners. If there's 4, it becomes a commission meeting, and we need to have posted an agenda and all those things. So this is our sweet spot where we can have 3 or less. And number 2, I agree absolutely. All right, any other discussion? Okay, commissioners, I invite you to unmute if you're online and clear out that frog if you're in person. And all those in favor of the motion to create a Neighborhood Resilience Working Group composed of Chair McCain, Commissioner Bear, and Commissioner McCormick, say aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Let's say no. Great, motion passes, and working group members, Marissa will be in touch about finding that first meeting date. Thank you very much. All right, moving on. Item 6D, item 6C, Greater Observatory Mesa Trail Plan Draft Request for Comment. And this is a discussion item. Hopefully you folks have had a chance to review the letter and the plan itself. And this is a chance to provide any feedback about that information. So the floor is open. Go ahead, Commissioner McCormick.
I thought it was awesome. I love these kinds of plans where they look at where the social trails are and they consider creating permanent trails in some of these places because it's obvious that people want them, and otherwise closing other trails that are causing unnecessary erosion or impacts to habitat. So I just wanted to provide that feedback of thanks, and I think it's really awesome. Spent many years hiking on those trails and agree with what they found from my own experience.
Yeah, I will second everything Commissioner McCormick said. I've, especially over the last 6 months, spent lots and lots of time literally purposely getting lost when you can't know what direction you are up there with my dog. And so glad that the Observatory Mesa Trail Plan is out to put a little order to what's kind of the wild, wild west out there in terms of unauthorized trails that are weathering and other activities. So I'm super excited about it as well.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
Commissioner Byer has his hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Byer.
Yep. So yeah, I guess so. One question I had when I read the plan, they didn't really talk about the level of engagement from the Forest Service and Lowell Observatory. So maybe they should probably address that in the plan. I'd like to know that they're fully on board. I love the plan. It's a lovely area. I like it a lot. So that was just one thing that they might want to make sure is included in the plan. Maybe I missed it. The other thought I had is just more on if anyone, and maybe it's not necessarily the Observatory Mesa Trail Plan authors, but somebody in recreation and access should do an analysis. Are there underserved areas, like parts of town that, this is such a wonderful asset, and the people who live near Thorpe Park who already have this wonderful asset now have an even greater asset? Is there some way we should work, say, with Mountain Line to make sure that if there are underserved communities that don't have access to these beautiful, not necessarily this open space, but to increase that accessibility for neighborhoods that, I live in a different neighborhood, but I go 1 mile and I can go cross under the freeway and I have 300 miles of trails without encountering a road. It's wonderful. So I feel like my neighborhood is doing fine. But I guess just that in general for these sorts of opportunities to make sure that we look for ways to engage people who might not otherwise have that easy access. So that's all.
Thanks, Mr. Bear. On the first point, I'm trying to pull up the plan now, but my memory is they spoke explicitly of the involvement, at least of Lowell. I thought I saw that in the plan. I'm not sure about the Forest Service. I'm trying to pull that up now. And then on the second account, that might be good feedback for us to give the Open Space Commission.
Yeah.
Because that really fits into their mission.
Commissioner Steiger and Nicole have their hands up.
Yeah. Who's first? Nicole, did you have a direct comment on what Paul's asked?
I did. Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Byer, for your question. This is a little bit antiquated, but when open space was still in sustainability, we did conduct an accessibility assessment in 2016-17. And so the open space team does have that information. I don't think that analysis has been repeated, but that is something I'm sure that they would be happy to share with the commission at a later meeting. And then obviously something to build off of. And we, at that time, used a lot of data points that are held within the city, as well as Metro Plan and Mountain Line.
Okay, cool.
And on the first one, I am looking on page 8, I believe, of the plan, and they do cite the National Forest Resource Management Plan. So there are some specific notes on that, and they, at least nominally, the Greater Observatory Mesa partners are listed as Lowell, the city, and the Forest Service. So I'm hoping that that is codified and made more clear within the plan.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments, questions about the plan?
Commissioner Steiger.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Steiger, go ahead.
Hi there, y'all. I was really excited to see that there were a few trails that were designated specifically as ADA accessible, and was happy to see. I think it was maybe the last map or so that listed, adaptive trail, ADA trail, easy, medium, hard, whatever. And I was curious to hear. I'm scrolling through here to see the signage. I doubt maybe it won't be included in this plan just yet, but if there was descriptive language that was also included to describe what those things might mean, just for folks that would be accessing those trails. What does an easy trail actually mean? Does it have the slope? Does it have the distance? Does it have the grade? Things like that. If that would be included in those resources for folks. And was just really happy to see that there was a movement to create those spaces in the first place up there.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on the plan? Okay, is there something else? I wonder if, I think it would be great to give, who exactly put this together? It was not the commission per se, it was the Open Spaces Department.
That's correct.
I guess I have an idea of maybe sending them a letter from us, thanking them for doing this. I don't know why, it just seems like it was pretty cool. And so we'll just move that. I move that we have Marissa write a letter from the commission to.
Unfortunately, this is only a discussion item.
Oh, okay. No worries. No worries. I will not propose a decision.
Maybe we could do that next month. Maybe it could be one of the commissioners, so it's not the more on Marissa.
Say the last part again, I'm sorry.
Sorry, maybe we could put it on the agenda for next month. And maybe one of the commissioners could write a letter so as not to put more on Marissa.
Yeah, okay, sure. So we put that on the next month's agenda. Nicole, did you have something?
I did, and I just want to encourage commissioners to take the survey that is associated with the plan. And so any comments on the individual level can be added to those remarks.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. So let's move now to item 6D, Bond Committee update. Back to you, Nicole.
Great. Thank you, commissioners. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I just have a couple of slides, so bear with me as I move to a quick presentation. And can someone just confirm that you see my slide deck?
Yes, we do. We see it.
Great. And hopefully everyone has noticed our new logo. Great. So the city council had requested that city staff bring forward a comprehensive list of critical infrastructure and programmatic needs to a citizen bond committee that was established. And the citizen bond committee over a number of months met very frequently and heard a lot of information from the city, from sustainability, from housing, from water services, from the police department, as well as the fire department. And they were tasked, and I do not envy the burden that they were placed with dealing with, but they were tasked to look at all of those critical needs and make a recommendation to the city council on what should go forward on a November 2022 ballot. The big challenge within all of that is, and I can look up the specific number, but I believe what the Citizen Bond Committee was presented with totaled over $200 million worth of needs. And we as a city organization only had, and by council direction, but had a cap on our bond authority at 100 million. And the city council decided that they did not want to bring forward a full $100 million ballot because that didn't leave any room. So they charged the Citizen Bond Committee with bringing forward a recommendation under a specific threshold. And after, as I mentioned, the Citizen Bond Committee spent countless hours meeting very frequently to determine where the priorities were and to build their recommendation. And what came forward by the Citizen Bond Committee was the council heard the recommendations loud and clear and really built a portfolio for the November ballot based off of that. And I don't think it will be of any surprise to note that fire and water infrastructure were the top needs in the recommendations. And specifically, as you can see here, there will be 2 ballot questions. The first being fire and water infrastructure that incorporates some very needed funding for wildfire. Obviously, forest health initiatives associated with wildfire engines at a little over $2 million. And for anyone who lives in the area or has been volunteering to assist the Spruce Wash, the flood area that many of our community members are dealing with after the museum fire. So the Spruce Wash infrastructure needs at $26 million. And then our Wildcat wastewater treatment facility has critical capacity needs, and that was recommended for funding at $21 million, as well as significant wastewater plant efficiencies at over $8 million. And I just want to bookmark this for the commission that our water services, the city on average uses about 39,000 megawatts of electricity a year. And annually, that is the majority of that consumption is from water services. And that obviously will fluctuate from year to year, depending on a number of variables. To improve the efficiency of the wastewater plant is critical. And so we're really excited to see the $8 million in there specifically for improving the efficiency of the wastewater plant. So the first ballot question will be a 57 point, I'm just going to say 3 for the sake of the discussion, but $57.3 million. The next ballot question is for housing. And some community or commission members may recall that there was a housing ballot question on the previous 2018 ballot, and it did not pass. So we're really excited and thrilled to see the housing question come back. And this has been divvied up. The Housing Commission, which has a very different, it has a very specific charge. And the Housing Commission was actually evolved out of the failure of the bond initiative 4 years ago. And they have been tasked with developing recommendations to move forward with addressing the housing emergency. And so there is $20 million that has been identified for a housing initiative that is divvied up between the redevelopment of current city-owned housing rental units. If anyone is familiar, a number of those are in dire need for improvements. Repurposing existing buildings into rental units, incentivizing rental housing, as well as really ramping up the home buyer assistance program. And again, that's a total of 20 million. We are thrilled through the sustainability lens with this outcome, because all of this that is being proposed for the 2022 ballot is about building a stronger community, and it's about resiliency. Minus the energy efficiency piece at the wastewater treatment facility, this is about our community and a resilient community. So we will be right alongside the rest of the water services and housing and fire, wildland fire staff, really out there to help educate the community on what the bond initiative is, as well as the impacts and need. So that is a sum up of the recommendations that went to the city council and then the city council decision. And what was included in the agenda were links and I believe the presentation that was provided to the council, and then a very robust and lengthy conversation that the council had on, what to bring forward on the ballot initiative. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions and yeah, appreciate the opportunity to provide a quick update.
Yeah, thanks very much, Nicole. There's an echo. Interesting. I'd love to know how the commission can help get the word out about the bond when that word starts to be getting out.
Yeah, well, staff has been reconvened and we just had our first meeting yesterday. So I will keep the commission informed and get back to you on that. Right now, staff is going to be working on the pamphlet. And that may sound just like, oh, there's an educational pamphlet that's going out, but that's not what it is. It's the legal element of the pamphlet. So once that's designed and an outreach framework has been developed and approved by our bond counsel and our city attorney, I will bring that information back to the commission.
All right, thanks much, Nicole. And Commissioner Daly, I wonder if you would be willing to offer some reflections on your experience on the bond committee?
Sure, absolutely, Chair McCain. So it was an interesting process. The city brought together a lot of diverse interests on the committee in the committee members, and at the end of the day, I think the thing I guess I was a little disappointed is we had some really direct climate action things that kind of fell just off the outside the cut for the level the city was targeting. But it was, it was a really, there were a lot of good conversations, and, it's kind of, I think it was difficult for people to choose what was really the most important out of competing important priorities. I think people were generally in agreement that, none of the recommendations that were proposed by staff, the assorted staff groups for the city were, unworthy, bad ideas that we shouldn't be spending money on. It was just, a matter of, I call it the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? If you can't keep the city from flooding during, rainfall events on the museum fire scar, then that's probably the higher priority than furnace retrofits, as an example. So it's an interesting discussion. I think like Nicole was saying, there's some very, very good stuff that is on the ballot. So hopefully we get those passed this fall.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Daly, for being on that committee, especially given the challenging task that you completed. Really, really appreciate that.
Commissioner Byer was on the committee also.
Hey, thank you, Commissioner Byer. That was pre-commission, so that doesn't count. Sorry, just kidding. Great, so let us move on now to the item E.
Nicole and.
We have something else? Oh, go ahead.
Commissioner Byer, please go before me.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree with everything Commissioner Daly said. It was, I thought, a tremendous workload, and people were very constructive and really tried hard. I guess the greatest annoyance to me was that the upgrading the Wildcat facility, which was 20 million bucks or something. Obviously, if the city had done a rate study about 10 or 12 years ago, this could have been done on the ratepayers, all the people who use city water. But we got way behind in this obsolete, so that was the biggest annoyance to me was, couldn't we have done that $20 million to do some of these other really cool things by, and now we can't, we got to buy that thing tomorrow. We can't wait, but that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Byer.
And if I may, and for some of the commissioners, I think it is of importance to understand that there are a lot of legal limitations that we have in the state of Arizona to do the work that we're doing in the sustainability arena. And one of the goals that I have is to try to reinvigorate legislation. We have not been successful in getting legislation to move forward, but we never stop trying to help facilitate a more authority for the work that we're doing. We are very limited to charge fees and even tax ourselves in a lot of the needs that we have for climate action. So I will continue to keep the commission apprised of our work, but just going back to action related to the commission, the legislative piece and voice is so critical, and hopefully we'll make some headway in the next legislative session to just really open up some more pathways for the critical work that needs to be done in the climate arena. So, thanks.
Great, thanks so much, Nicole. And now I'd like to move to item 6E, regional wildfire discussion. And just to tell you a bit about my process, I think I suggested this item when the pipeline fire was really raging. And I am pleased to announce that you might have heard this, but apparently Lockett Meadow itself was saved. I think some of the forest around that was not, but Lockett Meadow itself was not devastated. And as I put this item together, it started to merge with the working group idea and this Firewise stuff. So for me, I think just in terms of my process, this real awareness of fire, reinforced by these current fires, got me thinking about pairing that with the working group. But I would love to hear any reactions that anyone has, and we actually also have a couple public comments, but I'll first open it up to the commission if you have any thoughts on regional wildfire based on the questions I offered in the agenda summary.
Commissioner Byer has his hand up, but I'm not sure if that was from the last item.
Commissioner Byer, do you have something?
No, I just forget to put my hand down, sorry.
If you do that when we're in person, then I'll have doubts about you, but it's okay online. Well, why don't I read these two public comments? First is from Darren Donaldson. He had 3 points that he wanted to share. 1, the current process to enact forest restrictions is not adequate for Coconino National Forest. The approval process for recommended forest restrictions should not need both a regional and national approval. The Coconino Forest District should have total absolute autonomy and authority to impose fire restrictions without regional or national approval. The second point is that the Coconino Forest, Coconino County, and City of Flagstaff should be aligned and consistent when forest closures are ordered. For example, Coconino County and City of Flagstaff are at stage 3, but some of the Coconino National Forest is stage 2. This type of inconsistency creates confusion on which areas are open and closed. All 3 jurisdictions need to be aligned to the same fire restriction. And 3, there needs to be a seasonal stage 3 restriction for Coconino National Forest, a defined period every year that the forest is in stage 3 at peak fire season, for example, May through June. For example, May through June, the forest is in stage 3 restriction. So I'm hoping that Mr. Donaldson is getting this information out widely, since we don't have a whole lot of power in this area. But those were his comments. And then we had a comment from Brianna Cornell, similar themed. Additional action to prevent human-caused wildfires needs to be taken by the City of Flagstaff, Coconino County, and USFS of Coconino National Forest. A list of proposed solutions can be found in the petition link below. And Marissa, I'll ask you to forward that to the commission. There's a change.org petition of interest. They're not all encompassing, but taking at least a fraction of one additional action is better than continuing on our current path. The regulations in current trail forest and tourism management have not kept pace with the extreme drought and climate change in northern Arizona. We need to update our regulations and enforcement to keep pace. Additionally, the city of Flagstaff, Coconino County, and USFS need to better work together in communication of forest closures, trail closures, and fire regulations. Conflicting fire stages, conflicting areas of closures, and communications that differ across platforms leads to confusion for residents, let alone visitors. Please work on making the decision-making process more local and collaborate with the county and USFS for feasible additional actions to prevent human-caused fires. And I'm wondering if we can forward this to the fire department or whatever agency.
So I forwarded them to the clerk's office,
Okay.
attention of the city council.
Okay, great. Great. So are there any comments on any of that or any other fire-related comments?
I'll comment.
Fire away, excuse me.
I think that when fire hits, it's traumatic and we all want to do something. And we have to keep in mind that the ponderosa forest is going to transition into an oak and juniper woodland. And that happens via fire. And we can reduce the impacts of these fires by thinning, which is amazing, and that's what we're doing. But when a big fire comes and no one dies and no structures are burnt, then that's a wonderful thing. That's the best case scenario. And so whether or not it was started by a person or whatever, it's going to start eventually. And I think that an educational program that sends these messages out to people is really important to sort of mitigate this kind of response and action that may be put to better use in another way. And I think it's also important to realize that these fires are going to come, most forests burn multiple times before the vegetation transition occurs. So just helping people with their expectations is going to be really important. And that also the thinning was very beneficial, that reduced risks and something that should continue. So my comments on that.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner McCormick. Anyone else? Okay, I'd like to move to item 6F, our staff update. And we have Summer White providing the update. Thank you for being here, Summer.
Hi, good evening, commissioners. For those of you that I haven't met yet, my name is Summer White, and I am the Waste Reduction and Food Systems Coordinator with the Sustainability Office. So I started full-time in February and first began as an AmeriCorps Vista, so I'm really excited to be full-time with the rest of the sustainability crew. I'll go ahead and share my screen so you all can see our PowerPoint for our sustainability updates. Give me one moment here. All right, can I get a confirmation that you all can see my screen?
Yes, we can. We can see it.
Okay, great. All right, so starting off with upcoming events we have going on. Speaking of flooding and fires, we have the museum flood area cleanup events that have been going on for the past month or so. We have 2 more events going on. So this Saturday, we'll have another sandbag event and then another on July 9th. So those are going on from 8 a.m. to 12. And if you all are able to make it out, these are the 2 more events that we have. And this picture was taken from last week's event. Nicole is in there along with some others. So they've been really successful. And I think I got an update from Steve that there have been over 20 plus homes that have received assistance with sandbags to help with flood mitigation. So that's really exciting. We also have a Fix-It clinic that's going to occur on July 16th. That'll be happening from 10 to 2 at the Montoya Community Center. So if you all have items that need to be fixed up, please bring them down, spread the word. You can make an appointment or just show up. We have also been tabling at the downtown community market this summer, so that those are Wednesday afternoons from 4 to 8. We'll be there until September 7th. So every week we're featuring one of our different program areas. So we've got food and waste, climate, and then community stewards. So great way to engage with the community there. We also are hosting our garden work parties at all of the community garden spaces through October. So these are on Thursday afternoons from 4:30 to 6:30. We've had really awesome turnout this year. We've been doing registration beforehand, which I think has helped a lot. And so a lot of engagement at the gardens this year, which is really exciting as well. And then to reiterate, with current activities, we will start with community stewards. So as we mentioned earlier, staff have been part of the incident management team for organizing volunteers in the museum flood area. And as we mentioned earlier, we've had several events that have all been really successful. And I have it here that 22 resident sandbag walls were refreshed and 1 road project that could potentially protect 6 homes. So lots of residences that are being protected through this effort. So we thank everyone that's been coming out and helping with this effort. It's been really amazing. Moving on to climate and energy team, the sustainability staff are participating in 6 session equity learning series with a cohort of Urban Sustainability Directors Network, so USDN. And this series is focused on leading complex policy and program initiatives. Also, the Northern Arizona Solar Co-op has reached 150 members, and folks can still sign up for this until July 31st. Which is very exciting as well. More from the climate and energy team. We will be partnering with the Flagstaff Public Library to launch the Climate Resilience Project starting in September. So the mission of this program is to promote individual and community resilience to climate change in Flagstaff through shared discussions, work supporting existence resilience, and initiatives in Flagstaff by creating a supportive, intergenerational, and community environment. And so Jenna has more information about this. And I think you all heard a little bit about that earlier during this meeting. More from climate and energy team. Staff had their 6th and final meeting as part of the Flagstaff Unified School District Climate Action Advisory Committee to prepare recommendations to the governing board regarding climate action goals. So this committee is made up of staff, students, parents, community members, who are all exploring strategies to reduce, learn, and engage, to organize the ways the Flagstaff or FUSD can become an active partner with the City of Flagstaff and other agencies to respond to the climate emergency and strive for carbon neutrality by 2030. And closing with climate and energy, starting on July 1st, the energy rebate program is being updated to reflect the renewed federal emphasis on weatherization and energy saving investments, as well as the funding secured to support this work at a more robust level. So home weatherization rebates will be available to support specific envelope improvement and installation measures, as well as the installation of eligible energy efficient appliances in existing homes. More information on that on our website as well. Moving on to food systems. This week is National Pollinator Week. So we've had a few events put on in honoring this. This Saturday, we have a planting event happening at our Urban Farm Incubator, which we're really excited about. We've had an ongoing art contest, and we also had a workshop last week in partnership with Terra Birds at the Benito Street Community Garden. So please feel free to come out this Saturday if you're interested. We just recently closed our home chicken coop and composter rebate program that we piloted this year. We were able to rebate 33 residences, and this program was really successful, and we're glad that we're able to assist those folks with implementing systems at home. So the rebate program is closed for now. Moving on to materials management, we are currently in the process of developing towards zero resource guides for short-term rentals, local restaurants, and office buildings. So these guides are meant to help business managers reduce their impact on the environment and save money by reducing waste, water, and energy. Eventually, our goal is to create more of a collaborative program that provides guides and resource assessments to business owners. But right now, we're just focusing on the guides that we will provide for short-term rental owners specifically, and also their accompanying guests to help them during their stay. Continuing on with materials management, on the June 7th City Council meeting, the NAU composting IGA between the City of Flagstaff and Northern Arizona University was passed. So originally in October of 2019, the city entered an intergovernmental agreement with Northern Arizona University to pilot this composting program. And so in 2020, the original agreement was renewed for an additional year by both parties. And we're really excited that it's been passed again. Over the past few years during the pilot. The city has delivered over 400,000 pounds of waste for composting. Most of that material has come from city parks, but eventually we'd like to introduce other streams of organic material, which include residential yard waste and commercial food scraps. And then still on the IGA, the composting program transitioned from the 2-year pilot program to the 5-year agreement. So that's what we're in now, and we have the ability to extend the agreement for a total of 10 years. We'll continue to deliver the compostable material to NAU's composting facility at no cost, and the city is avoiding the cost to deliver the same material to the landfill. So it's great so that transportation costs are reduced at the same time. All right, moving on to climate advisory group updates. So they had their first 2 meetings in March, and the group consists of youth members, grades 8th through 12th, representing schools in Flagstaff. And we've got lots of great energy and creative ideas from these folks. They had their first interactions with the community during our Earth Day event. They had their own table where they helped other young people participate in our scavenger hunt, and encouraged drawings, writings, and provided information about the advisory group's work. They also offered an interactive survey about what sustainable changes people want to see in Flagstaff. And there's a picture of them in the corner. It was great to have them out there with us. And now moving on to the business advisory group. So with this group, the Sustainability Office hopes to support businesses across Flagstaff, helping them reduce their climate impacts, offering resources, and addressing challenges. On May 12th, the Business Advisory Group had their first meeting, and they were most interested in direct business engagement, assisting businesses with climate planning and coalition building. During their last meeting, they learned that electrification, and then providing feedback to our office on how to engage with businesses on electrification, what messages resonated with them, and how to get this message out in the right way while also meeting the needs of businesses. And finally, our equity advisory group. This group will center the leadership of those most impacted by climate change in advising on the solutions to these issues. The city invites residents, especially those most impacted by climate burdens or injustices, to join this leadership team. So applications are currently open until the end of July. So help us spread the word to get folks involved with this group, which we can send the link later for that as well. So thank you all so much.
All right, thanks so much, Summer. Appreciate it. So our item 7 is our to and from. This is an opportunity to share about community events. And I have one, happened last night. Friends of Flagstaff's Future hosted a very successful mayoral candidate forum. And it is available to watch on Facebook. I'm going to send the link to Marissa, and hopefully she can send that out to the commissioners. And Commissioner Bear was also part of the planning team with myself and the Executive Director of F Cubed, and Housing Commissioner Tyler Denham. So it was like a commissioner thing, really fun. And we're also going to do another one for city council candidates in late September, early October. So stay tuned for details on that. Any other to and from? Marissa.
Yeah, I have a couple. I'm going to share my screen really quick. But so Parks and Recreation have been looking at the Thorpe Park Annex plans. If you haven't seen the survey already, I will send it out to all of you. But this is really exciting because this is all around our office. So this is what our neighbors and our office will look like. One thing to note, our office does remain on all of these plans, so we're not moving. We are going to stay in our building. They are planning around us. But I'll send this link out. I'll send this information out. If you want to give feedback on all 3 of these plans, that would be fantastic. And then I'll take the opportunity to plug the museum volunteer events one more time. I have and will continue to post forums for these events. You can feel free to attend. You don't need to check with me for one. Already, we have 14 additional requests for mitigation assistance on people's homes after we just met this past week. So these are people who are elderly or experiencing disabilities who need help with their sandbags. And we have just a lot of requests to get through. So if you are able to attend Saturday, 8 through noon, I won't be there, but Steve will. And it's a fantastic event. So.
And then, is there any possibility of doing it other times a week? Because Saturdays is both Saturdays and early mornings are difficult for me.
Understood. Yeah. Right now, the only events that are planned are for let's see, this Saturday and then Saturday, July 9th. I believe there are other events through the Museum Flood Coalition, but I will see if I can get information on those.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any other to and from? All right, now I'd like to move to item 8, which is our future excuse me, agenda item requests. And Mr. White, yours.
Thank you. Yeah, just the couple that I mentioned earlier, I would like to, it would be nice to get an update as to the Red Gap Ranch water facility, what steps the city is taking to protect it as a potential water source, and what plans we could potentially have if it is removed as a source of potable water. Also, as I mentioned earlier, I would like to have a conversation, possibly with the Forest Service, about doing work to revegetate areas that are basically nearby fire scars, such as the museum fire and the nearby tunnel fire, because that does have an impact on a lot of different things that concerns the city of Flagstaff, including flooding, including watershed, and a lot of other things like that. And it doesn't have to be a binary revegetate or not revegetate issue, but it's still a conversation I would like to have, and I would like to see what we're doing about it, potentially. Members of the Sustainability Commission could organize help with that.
All right, thank you so much, Vice Chair White. Any other, and I guess for me, just to piggyback on that, I think maybe part of that would be more about forest transition education, because I'm really intrigued by what you offered, Commissioner McCormick, and I think that would be helpful information to get out there a little bit more. So I would love to see that combined with that discussion.
Commissioner Daly has his hand raised.
Go ahead, Commissioner Daly.
No, thanks, Chair McCain. I guess along the lines of the earlier discussion about the recent item on bike lanes that I thought should have come before the Sustainability Commission, and the item you raised, Chair McCain, on the past the transportation tax thing that probably should have come to sustainability. I'd like to propose a future agenda item to explore what could be done to kind of harmonize the Sustainability Commission and the Transportation Commission such that we can work on some issues together, maybe in a way that doesn't lead to big bulky joint meetings with 100 people on the phone, but whether there's whether there are opportunities to work closely that don't become cumbersome and don't overly burden staff.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, especially that last part. All right, any other future agenda item requests? Okay. It's 6:30, so I would like to adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being here. See you next month. Have a great month.
Nice to see everyone in person. Most people in person.
So Marissa and Jenna, do you see Nicole? Or is it all are you guys all drifted to the winds?
Oh,
Did you give her one of these, or should I just wait until,
yeah.